Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Blue Jay Tay TV. I am Blue Jay Tay. I hope you guys had an amazing couple days. I was been supposed to post this episode probably 2 days ago, but I'm finally doing it now. I had a lot of stuff going on and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But regardless of all that, welcome back to my podcast and let's get started. Cheers. So this week's episode is about the butterfly effect. I don't know if you guys remember the butterfly effect. I want to say, I know it was Ashton Kutcher and Amy Smart, which was awesome. I can't remember what year it came out in, so forgive me, you guys. I wrote it down. Don't remember where I put it. But the point is, that movie is so prevalent to today. It is such a deep movie, and at the end of the day, it was interesting to see how the movie played out. Now, there's two different endings. Let me get this out the way right now because I really, really have to say this. I loathe the I want to say it's the theatrical ending. I think that is the one. And the only ending I ever seen was, I guess it was the director's cut, and that's when he ends up going back in time, basically telling her some crazy stuff, Kaylee, and she ends up running away, and then he's just like, bye, and then, it fast forwards and shows you his life and how everybody prevailed since he wasn't in their lives and things like that. And then there is another ending where basically he's like a baby and his mom was giving birth and he like chokes himself with the umbilical cord and kills himself. Let me just get this off my chest now. That was the worst ending I've ever seen in my life. And I just saw that because I have the DVD. Yes, I still watch DVDs. Fight me. But I watched the DVD and I was just kind of like, I didn't even know that was, I didn't know that was a thing. That was a terrible ending because I don't feel like it gave him justice. I feel like it was just like a weird self-sacrifice thing. I think the ending that I know of makes way more sense because he goes back in time and he completely diminishes anything that they had between each other. Even though it's kind of like that weird deja vu feeling like, okay, I think we used to have something, or I think there's something about you that speaks to me, that kind of thing. But, it was for the best because all those changes were creating new issues. So I'll start with him as a child. He had a very tragic childhood. Has so many blackouts where he's just there one minute and the next minute he's like confused about why he's in a certain place, why is he holding certain things, like the one part where he's like holding a knife and his mom's like, what the hell? It's like 2.5 seconds of her walking out the room of him just sitting down coloring and come back and he's holding a knife and he cannot remember. That seems to be a really reoccurring theme in this movie until he becomes an adult. So he's friends with Kaylee and her brother Tommy and Lenny, who is the other friend. He's like I'm putting the quotations on that overweight, getting bullied type of friend. It was so weird. But the point is that all these kids have like pretty much tragic lives, and Kaylee and Tommy's dad is basically sexually abusing them, and it's just really sad to watch. And especially for me as a parent, because when you send your kids somewhere, that's the last thing you think is going on, or the last thing you want to think is going on, and then it happens, and then you're just kind of like, in her case, she didn't know because nobody was saying anything, and it was crazy. But Tommy, as you can tell, especially with the end of that episode, Tommy was just a messed up person, and I think a good portion of it was because of his father, sexually abusing them. And I think a big character trait of his of protecting Kaylee from even Evan, who was supposed to be his friend, which is Ashton Kutcher, by the way. I think that he wanted to protect her from everybody because, sometimes in situations with siblings, you feel like we are all we have. And especially in a world where the person who's supposed to protect you the most is the person that is literally hurting you. So I've dealt with that in different ways. Like I have a best friend who she's very protective of her brother. And for a long time, I couldn't understand some things that she was upset about that I'm not going to mention. But the point is that we had a really deep talk. I think it was the day of her mom's memorial because her mother passed away. God rest her soul. But we were talking and she broke down some things to me, and it made me realize, okay, I get that. I completely and utterly now I'm understanding why you were that protective over him. So the point is, I'm saying all that to say, I understand why Tommy was so crazy over Kaylee, because it's like, that's all I have, and you're not going to take that away from me. He even kind of says that to him when he's like, there's a million other sisters in the world, so why'd you have to fuck with mine? Like, and it's just like, it's in his mind, he can't understand it, but again, they're kids, so of course he's not gonna be able to understand it. But that, I feel like that was why he was acting like that. Lenny was a really good friend. He tried to be as helpful as possible, but I feel like he was just destined to not fail, but just destined to be in that situation where he was just stuck. And I feel like one of the biggest reasons why is because even though we see characters in movies or shows that are bigger than their opponents, he was very soft-spoken, very scared. And it was kind of sad to watch, especially because of the way that Tommy was. He was so sadistic. Okay, so I have to get this off my chest. So one thing that will always bother me is Tommy was so small, okay? And shout out to that little boy, I can't remember his name. Shout out to him for playing Tommy, because I saw him in plenty of things and he does his roles really well. But Tommy is like 4'9", and everybody is literally 5'2" and beyond when it comes to him. And nobody kicked his ass. Like, nobody. And I get he was sadistic and all that stuff, but like, even the guy in the movie theater, even though it was a well-deserved ass whooping, because why would you do that to him? Like, trip him? But it's like, dude, this kid is whooping your ass. Like, don't get me wrong, I understand that he like hit him in the face with a pole, but you mean to tell me that movie theater pole was strong enough to keep you from being able to really kick this kid's ass? And his girlfriend, Jesus, whoop, you're there for nothing. Like, why on God's green earth would you just let him get beat up like that? She didn't even jump in. She just kept screaming like that was gonna make a difference. It was not gonna make that man stop. Like, bye. At that, I do not understand that. Him, Evan, Lenny, I don't understand why anybody like just was so terrified of him. Like, this man is so small. I'm not saying that you can't be small and with power, because I'm only 5'2", but I'll definitely kick your ass. But it's a simple thing of, why can't you just fight back? Like, nobody attempted to fight this kid back. It didn't make any sense. I'll tell you one of the saddest, because there's a lot of sad moments in this movie. This movie is actually pretty dark, to be honest with you. And it was my first movie that I ever saw with Ashton Kutcher, or any TV, anything that I saw Ashton Kutcher in, it was actually really dark like that. And the guy, I do not remember his name for nothing, but I can't remember his freaking name. Gunther, I think that's what his name was. But that was his roommate. Super goth, loved it. Definitely about that goth life. But I remember him from Boy Meets World when he was playing Frankie. He was actually, to me, a good addition to that. Especially about when he first told him, like, yo, you might not want to do this. You can wake up a lot more fucked up than you are now. I really appreciated him saying that to him. So, but yeah, one of the saddest moments, they were gonna go blow a mailbox up with some dynamite. You know, he blocks out, has no clue what's going on. But basically, we end up finding out, because you could say that he changed the past, but I don't think he did. But you end up finding out that the mailbox blew up and it killed the woman and her baby. Okay, so even though technically at the end she gets saved, her and the baby, I just don't understand why nobody could have ran up and said, there's dynamite in your mailbox. Everybody just said, oh my gosh, no, please. Like, it makes more sense to be like, hey, there's dynamite in your mailbox, move. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There was just a lot of, we could have prevented this, but we didn't moments. And that's probably like a reoccurring theme when I think about it in this movie, is a bunch of, we could have stopped it, but we decided not to. And that was Evan's mom's last straw, where she was like, we're out of here. And I get it. I would have done the same thing. Like, being around these kids, whether it's you or them or both. It's becoming an issue with y'all being around each other. So no. But you see him later on, college, actually great student, like living his best life. He has a date with this chick, goes through his notebook. She wants him to read this extremely awfully dark journal entry. Okay. Listen, I'm into a lot of things, okay? Like I said, I'm gothic as all hell, but I also have a very bright side of me. I love creepypastas. I am in love with horror movies. I am just infantilized with the dark side of things. I don't think I would ever want a man to read me his traumatic stories. And I'm not saying not tell me about it. I'm very open to any man expressing his emotions. I feel like that's a lot of women's problems, that they don't want a man to express his emotions. I, however, want you to. What I don't want you to do is, as he's reading how dark this is, and even he kind of looks uncomfortable, and she's like, it's okay, like, yeah, no, just kind of be like, you know what, let's just not go there tonight. Let's just do something else. You know what I mean? You guys originally came back there to have sex. So it's kind of like, well, vab killer. But even after, he has his first immediate, like, random flashback, and he's in that mode, and he wakes up tripping, and she's just like, yeah, you pass out. Like, do you always do that? And I'm just kind of like, girl. Like, I don't know. That girl was weird to me. Like, there's just something about that scenario that just didn't sit right with me. And when he goes to see Kaylee, I'll never forget my older sister, when I first watched that when we were younger, and the guy kind of, like, she was a waitress or whatever, and the guy kind of touched her butt, and she just kind of, and I'm like, why she let him do that? And then she was just like, well, I mean, she's been used to allowing people to touch her like that, well, not allowing, but you know what I mean. Like, her father's been doing it all her life. So she just feels like, I'll just smile and walk away. Like, but he's like talking to her and he's mentioning stuff to her. And I get that he's on a different path, but I feel like almost in a way he kind of healed from his past a little bit. And she clearly did not. So, like, sometimes when you talk to people when they've gone through trauma and traumatic incidences, you kind of open up a very bad wound, or you tear open a wound that's already not healed. And I feel like that's what Evan did in that moment, which resulted in her killing herself. And it was definitely dark and depressing. And from that point on, it's just a roller coaster of him going back in time, changing this, changing that. But again, when you change one thing, you change everything. You change the course of how life is supposed to go, which is why I believe that God did not allow us to be able to time travel, because you would literally change the entire course of your life, and you would have changed memories that you wouldn't even remember because you didn't literally live through them, like through the lens that you're living through them right now. But that's kind of what Evan did. And it seemed like he almost slipped back into that childish mode where he was desperately trying to make things better. So it was just kind of like, and it was nice to see the difference in changes. Like when he lost his arms, when Tommy was a good guy and Kaylee was with Lenny, and or when his mom was, his mom was a smoker, when he was with Kaylee, but him and Gunther was not friends anymore. That's what I'm saying. It was so awesome to see that. It really, really, really was. And that was the point, I feel, of the movie, is that whatever happens in your life, whatever's a traumatic event that goes on in your life, you cannot go back and change it, but you can move forward. And that's all you really have in this world, is to be able to move forward from anything that is devastating to you. I've had a lot of traumatic things happen to me, and trust me, there's so many days that I've wanted to start over and be like, nope, I'm done. Like, I need to go back and change it, but you cannot change it. Or like in his dad's case, he's like, you can't play God. You just can't do that. Side note, let me talk about his dad. So apparently his dad had the same issue. If I say one more time, you know, his dad has the same issues or the same powers, I guess, quote unquote, that he has. So that moment where he's in the hospital seeing his dad and his dad's trying to choke him out, it's because his dad knows he's going to cause a huge issue if he keeps going back in time and trying to change things. And I believe that's what his dad was doing. And that is why, and I think he did say that, but that is why he was there. And it was just crazy to see that. And I mean, let me just say this, the negligence at our hospital. I get he's trying to choke his own son out, but I mean, they beat him on the back of his head until he died. I'm like, Jesus. Like, you know what I mean? So he probably ultimately saved his dad's life too. But, you know, he was not getting it. Like, Evan just was not getting it at that time. I think he was in the, what would I call it when characters get like that? They're in full-blown fight or flight mode, kind of, where they're just like, I have to do this and I have to do it now and I can't stop and I gotta keep going and going and going. And it's just like you're hitting a brick wall. You're trying to do the same thing. It's almost like, and Deja Vu is literally my favorite movie. Like, as far as just a general genre of movies, because I love horror movies, what I'm saying, that is my favorite movie. And one thing he said in there, it would definitely applies to this movie. And what did he say? I mean, let me paraphrase it. I don't want to like misconstrue it, even though I pretty much know that movie like the back of my hand. But he said, yeah, we changed one thing, but by changing one thing, we didn't change anything. And that was the lesson that Evan he finally understood being in the hospital and watching, you know, his brain, you know, expanding, his skull, like having issues. It was just kind of like, after all the stuff that I've done, I now realize I wasn't doing anybody any good by doing that. And he knew by being with Kaylee, it was going to turn her into a bad scenario, because he could not be with her happily and have Tommy happy. It wasn't going to work like that. And because of everything that was going on, you know, he couldn't have Gunther and have Kaylee and have Tommy. It wasn't going to work like that. And Lenny too. It just was not going to work like that. So it was nice, like at the end when, you know, he finally was just like said that threatening stuff to her and walked off, and then found out that she ended up going to go, you know, they ended up going to go live with their mom instead of their dad, who was clearly a child molester and all that stuff. It was just really nice to see. And even at the end when they saw each other, and it was just kind of like they both kind of looked when the other one was turned around, like, what? Like, I know you. Or in his eyes, he definitely know her because he remembers all that stuff. But in her eyes, I know she's like, hold on, like, you know, again, like that feeling of, I know there's a connection there, but I can't pinpoint it because he's pretty much erased all the memory that she's ever would have had of him. Excuse me. But so, all in all, I feel like this movie, to me, is highly underrated. I don't hear a lot of people talk about it. It was crazy because I was listening to one of the podcasts. One of the YouTube channels that I follow. And when they were talking about Degrassi, and they were like, you know, the fandom isn't as strong. Or there's a couple of them that said the fandom isn't really as big as people think it is. And I'm like, what? Because every time but if you do Google it, or YouTube it, should I say, you probably won't find that many podcast episodes on it, that many videos, that many, you know, compilations. And so maybe they are right. But to me, that show was very prevalent. It was popular. So, yeah. But there's a lot of movies that don't get enough praise to me. Like, this one doesn't. Mindhunters doesn't with I can't remember his name for nothing right now. There's so many people in there that I know, and the only person I can think of at the top of my head is LL Cool J. But that is an ensemble, a great ensemble of cast, like, you know, Val Kilmer and all that stuff. Yeah, it's a great ensemble. But the point is, that is a movie that to me is really good and really underrated. There's a lot of really underrated movies and TV shows, and I will definitely be talking about them for sure. But with that being said, this is going to be probably my shortest episode. But stay awesome, stay sweet, stay beautiful. I love you guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Cheers.